Chapter 598 The Grieving Juzi. The army was now getting a lot closer to the Sun Moon Empire's border. However, their morale was extremely low. None of the commanders were in a good mood, and such things were extremely infectious. Hence, even the soldiers below them were feeling it. Even though the army had secured multiple victories on this campaign, they were feeling very displeased after problems had emerged internally within the army. This was a common sentiment shared by the Soul Engineers and the commanders. One could only imagine how furious they must have felt to encounter these things when a golden opportunity for them to leave their names in the history books had shown itself. They couldn't wait to skin the entire Holy Ghost Church alive. Juzi was naturally a lot more composed than the rest. She was sitting in her carriage, but she would occasionally lift the curtains to glimpse at what was outside. Her eyes would naturally drift to where Hua Yuao, who was wearing a female outfit, was. Even though her face would not give off any hint of emotion, Hua Yuao would still be able to tell from her eyes that she was laughing deep down inside. This was the first time that Hua Yuao was being punished in this manner. In fact, Juzi was not only the one laughing at Hua Yuao, Tang Wutong would also burst into laughter periodically, even though she had already been warned many times by the Soul Engineer who was in charge of military discipline. Hence, while Hua Yuao was very frustrated by the punishment he had received, Juzi was actually very happy about it. Even though Hua Yuao had recently caused her a lot of trouble and had enraged her multiple times, the displeasure in her heart was gradually being melted by his mere presence beside her. In fact, she wished that this road they were traveling on would never end. At the very least, this would mean that he would be able to stay by her side. She felt good just seeing him every day. Juzi wondered why she didn't feel the same way when they were back in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. The speed at which the army was moving definitely could not be compared to that of a Soul Engineer Legion. Even then, the Sun Moon Empire's troops were able to fast march at a quicker pace than the other empire's troops. Within 5 days, the border between the Sun Moon Empire and what was originally the Heavenly Soul Empire was now within sight. Juzi chose to reorganize her troops at an area close to the border of the Heavenly Soul Empire. After getting her troops to set up camp at that area, she gave out an order to the surrounding cities to resupply the army with rations and other supplies. The army was to rest up at that area while they waited for her next orders. In the meantime, she brought the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, as well as the remaining Soul Engineers from the Evil Eye Current Soul Engineer Legion and the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion, with her back to Radiant City. The Class 9 Soul Engineers from the Imperial Consecration Hall also followed her back to the capital of the Sun Moon Empire. Now that she had plans to confront the Holy Ghost Church, Juzi would definitely bring along all the manpower she had. Even though 2 of the 3 Beast Lord ranked Soul Engineer Legions were no longer what they used to be, she still effectively had 2 Soul Engineer Legions, when all their manpower was combined. At the same time, she had quite a few Class 9 Soul Engineers with her. They would definitely be able to protect themselves even if they were to bump into an ultimate Douluo like Yu Shishui. Hua Yuao and Tang Wutong were flying not too far away from Juzi. After all, they were supposed to be her personal guards. Right now, Hua Yuao was definitely feeling uncomfortable in the human-shaped soul tool, which did not fit very well with his body. Even though he knew it was mainly psychological rather than physical discomfort, he still could not help but feel frustrated with his outfit. He was constantly trying to release his ultimate ice aura to counter the fire-type elemental fluctuations which were coming from the human-shaped soul tool. Xiao Yu, can you come over here? Juzi, who was flying in the air, suddenly turned around and waved at Hua Yuao. Xiao Yu was the name she had given him. Every Soul Engineer from the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion knew that their marshal liked Xiao Yu a lot. The selection criteria for the Soul Engineers within the Soul Engineer Legions were very strict. This was especially true for the marshal's personal guards, because Juzi was the one who was supposed to handpick her personal guards. No one knew Xiao Yu's background. In fact, they did not even know what she looked like, as she was always wearing her human-shaped soul tool. Hua Yuao flew towards Juzi unwillingly before transmitting a message. What's the matter with you? Juzi lifted her visor as she moved closer to Hua Yuao before flashing him a mesmerizing smile. I'm hungry. I need you to prepare a meal for me. I heard your family has passed down a recipe for delicious grilled fish. No, I won't. Hua Yuao replied coldly. This was not the first time that Juzi had tried to make his life difficult. Ever since he had become her personal guard, she had made all sorts of difficult requests. Of course, Hua Yuao knew that she was only doing these to get closer to him. However, this was precisely why he was very wary of her. In fact, Hua Yuao was very against giving in to her demands. Suddenly, Hua Yuao heard Tang Wutong's voice in his ears. Go ahead and grill the fish for her. Hua Yuao was startled and turned around to look at Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong was still flying in a very relaxed manner. It did not seem like she was angry at all. When did she become so magnanimous? Is she still the Tang Wutong I know? Hua Yuao was a bit doubtful about her words. It's really fine. I really don't mind. However, you must tell her that I want a share of the grilled fish. I really miss the grilled fish you used to make. Tang Wutong revealed her true intentions. It seems like this girl is also craving some food. Compared to his attitude towards Juzi, Hua Yuao was very willing to prepare grilled fish for Tang Wutong. As long as that was what she wanted, Hua Yuao would definitely do his best to satisfy her wants. Juzi frowned and replied, if you can't even fulfill such a small request, how do you expect me to cooperate with you? This was not the first time she had used this to threaten him. However, it was undeniable that it was fairly effective. Of course, Hua Yuao had also given clear rejections if the request was too much. Hence, Juzi did not have high hopes that he would agree to her every single request. However, much to her surprise, Hua Yuao actually nodded after hesitating for a short while. All right. But Wutong and I must get a share of the fish too. He purposely added himself into the picture just so that Juzi would not reject his condition outright. Sure. Juzi replied without any hesitation. Hua Yuao could tell that she was over the moon from the look in her eyes. Is this really necessary just to eat a few grilled fish? Is she still the invincible war god empress I know? An hour later, Juzi ordered the group to settle down by a huge river. Catching fish was a piece of cake for Soul Engineers. Very soon, several fresh fish were presented in front of Juzi. The generals and Soul Engineers had all settled down at a place which was fairly far from where she was. After all, it was best if both genders could stay in different rest areas. Hence, Juzi would not have to share the food Hua Yuao was about to prepare, because Hua Yuao was wearing the human-shaped soul tool. He could only use the exposed part of his hands to prepare the fish. He was able to clean the fish and remove their scales in a short amount of time. Hua Yuao was already very familiar with the grilling process. He was able to set up a rack in no time. Very soon, the 2 ladies could smell the scent of grilled fish. Juzi naturally took the first fish. After taking her first bite, she could not help but look up to compliment Hua Yuao. Her eyes widened in disbelief as he nodded furiously to express her satisfaction with Hua Yuao's grilled fish. The second fish was offered to Tang Wutong. She simply sat by the side and enjoyed the fish Hua Yuao had grilled for her. It was common knowledge that women tend to have a greater appetite than men when it came to good food. Both ladies devoured Hua Yuao's grilled fish like nobody's business. Perhaps it was because of her greater fighting power, but Tang Wutong seemed to have a greater appetite than Juzi. While Tang Wutong was still grabbing the next grilled fish, Juzi was already full. During this time, Hua Yuao had also eaten a few grilled fish. However, he really did not have to eat much at his current cultivation. Even if he were to go without eating anything for a few days, it would still be perfectly fine. Juzi leaned on a huge tree behind her as she glanced at Tang Wutong, who was sitting not too far away from her. Are you not jealous that he is making grilled fish for me to eat? Tang Wutong shook her head as she continued to eat her grilled fish happily. Hua Yuao walked towards her before wiping the oil at the corner of her mouth with a clean handkerchief. Tang Wutong looked up and flashed a blissful smile at him. Even though Juzi was not able to see Hua Yuao's expression because of the visor on his face, she could still imagine the loving look in his eyes. She couldn't help but remark jealously, I can't believe you're not jealous at all. I think you don't know how to cherish your man. If Hua Yuao were my man instead, I would definitely not allow him to prepare food for another woman. Tang Wutong shook her head and smiled at Juzi. This is really nothing. Besides, the stuff he gives me is always different from what he gives others. Different? How is it different? As one would have expected of Juzi, she had been paying close attention to the way Hua Yuao had been grilling the fish. She made sure that he had followed the exact same procedure for both their fish. Hence, she did not believe what Tang Wutong had just said. Tang Wutong extended the grilled fish in her hands to Juzi and said, since you like him so much, why don't you try the fish he gave me? As she spoke, she retraced her arm and peeled off a chunk of fish for Juzi. Tang Wutong had decided not to be so magnanimous. Juzi took the piece of fish from Tang Wutong suspiciously. Her rationality told her that she should not be eating the leftovers of a commoner as the powerful war god empress. However, the curiosity and affection within her ultimately won her over as she stuffed the piece into her mouth. It took Juzi only a few bites for her to be stunned by the flavor. She sat still as she stared blankly at the space before her. The flavor in her mouth was simply out of this world. The fish meat was tender and juicy. It seemed to possess some sort of special energy, even though its flavor was more or less similar similar to that of the meat she ate earlier. This special energy was what made the meat so special. It was almost as if the entire grilled fish had been enhanced. In the meantime, Tang Wutong continued to eat her grilled fish. She still had the same blissful look on her face as she savored every bite. Juzi was stunned for a good long while before she finally swallowed the fish in her mouth. At that instant, she felt an immense satisfaction overwhelm her entire body. She felt as though she was being brought into a warm and loving embrace. What did you add to her grilled fish? Juzi turned her head and asked, Who are you? Who are you? Spoke plainly. You've been watching me while I was grilling the fish. You should know well enough that I did not vary my procedure because of Tang Wutong, were you? However, why is the flavor different? In fact, it tastes so much better. I don't care. I want that kind of fish too. Juzi spoke viciously. Who are you? Shook his head and said, I am sorry, but I don't think I can do it. Why can't you do it? I don't care. I want it too. Juzi was practically shouting at Who are you? In fact, she was so loud that some of the Soul Engineers from the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion who were guarding the area turned around to make sure that their marshal was okay. Juzi waved her hand and told them that she was fine. She tried to slow her breathing as she looked at both Who are you and Tang Wutong. Why? Why are you not able to do it for me? By now, her voice had softened. Who are you? Let out a gentle sigh before shaking his head. He did not go on to explain why as he looked away. Tang Wutong stood up and finished the grilled fish in her hand before explaining to Juzi. The emotions were different. You need to stop making things difficult for him. He didn't do it on purpose. He simply had different emotions when he was grilling the fish for us. Hence, the flavor will still be different, even though they were grilled in the same way. That's why I was never overly concerned that he was grilling fish for you. Unless I'm willing to share my grilled fish for you, you will never be able to taste the flavor of love. Tang Wutong walked towards Who are you before she leaned into his body. The grilled fish was very delicious. I love you. Who are you? Was startled by her short, simple sentences. It was the first time that Tang Wutong had expressed her love towards Who are you in front of someone else. This was a pleasant surprise for him. Even though he knew that Tang Wutong was trying to piss Juzi off, he was certain that she meant every single word she had said to him. I love you too. Who are you? Said. His heart had already melted after hearing what she had just said. Tears started to stream down Juzi's face in an uncontrollable fashion as she watched them hug before her. She finally understood why Tang Wutong was willing to allow him to grill fish for her. She was neither trying to be kind, nor was she hungry. She had simply wanted to show her that she didn't stand a chance at wresting Who are you from her. She finally understood it was not that Tang Wutong was not jealous of her. In fact, Tang Wutong had always been jealous of her. She was trying to put her down in the strongest possible way. Even though Juzi knew that she needed to be strong in moments like this, she still couldn't help but cry. So what if I managed to conquer the entire continent? I have still lost to her. As long as he leaves his heart with her, I will never stand a chance. Her tears blurred her vision. Juzi turned around and wiped away the tears on her face. She covered her face with her visor before walking to the side silently. She started to walk away from them as she remained silent. Did I go overboard? Tang Wutong snuggled against Who are you and asked. Who are you? Shook his head and said, It's good that you're trying to get her to give up on me. There's already no chance that we can get together. Besides, I don't want her to hold any more feelings for me. What you've done is correct, but I have to admit that Juzi is quite pitiful. You can tell that there is still kindness in her heart. She did not kill needlessly while she was conquering those cities. If not, I would have killed her despite our past relationship. Past relationship? Tang Wutong looked up immediately. She was alerted by Who are you's usage of such words. Who are you lifted his visor before he planted a kiss on her red lips. It just so happened that Juzi had turned around at this very instant after reaching the riverbank. After seeing them kiss, she could not help but fly into a rage. She dashed towards Who are you and Tang Wutong in a furious and mad manner. Who are you was naturally able to sense her movement. After all, his powerful cultivation meant that he was able to sense most of the movement in his surroundings. He let go of Tang Wutong before turning around to look at Juzi, following which, he released a gentle stream of soul power which formed a barrier that blocked Juzi from getting near them. Juzi glared at Who are you with blood-red eyes and shouted, Who are you? Do you know how much I? At that instant, the golden trident on Tang Wutong's forehead suddenly appeared before it emitted a golden ray of light that landed on Juzi's body. Juzi trembled vigorously as she stumbled backward. It was almost as if she had discovered something extremely frightening. Her eyes widened in fear as she ended her sentence there and then. Wutong, what did you just do? Who are you was startled as he turned around to look at her. Based on his understanding of her, Who are you knew that she would never harm Juzi even if she was jealous of her. Huh? I also have no idea what just happened. Tang Wutong was equally worried as she quickly stepped forward to support Juzi. Juzi, are you alright? I really don't know what just happened. Who are you believed that Tang Wutong would never lie to him. Besides, her tone and emotional fluctuations did not seem to suggest that she was lying. But then, what was that golden light? At this instant, their positions seemed to have been reversed. Juzi was now the composed one, while the other two were panicking over her. She shook her head and told Who are you and Tang Wutong, I'm fine. I'm sorry for being so emotional. I just need to rest for a while. Following which, she walked over to a big tree and sat down. Everything seemed to have become normal again. Who are you and Tang Wutong turned around to look at one another. Neither of them had any idea what had just happened. However, now that they no longer were in the mood to get intimate with one another, they simply sat down and rested up. At this moment, Juzi, who seemed to have returned to her usual calm state, was actually very confused. She was still trying to understand what had just happened to her. When that beam of golden light landed on her, she felt as if her entire body had been pinned down by a mountain. She also heard an immensely authoritative and frightening voice talk to her inside her head. The person with the mysterious voice said something that doused all the feelings of injustice and frustration within her heart. His words woke her up and left her with nothing but fear. If you don't want me to destroy you and your child, you would better keep what you want to say to yourself. Without the entire army burdening them, the Soul Engineer Legions were able to move at top speed. Because the Beast Lord ranked Soul Engineer Legions were all capable of flight, they were able to fly for a good 2 hours with the help of milk bottles before they needed to land and rest. Hence, they were able to see Radiant City in just slightly more than a day's time. While Juzi was flying with her human-shaped soul tool, she gazed at Radiant City, which lay before her. She knew that there was no room for failure. She must succeed in what she had planned to do. If she were to fail, there would be no turning back. Of course, she had prepared for the worst. Even if she were to fail, she would not lose everything. However, she knew well enough that her loved one would definitely die if she were to fail. Even though she had already given up on him and had understood that she had no hope of getting together with him, she was unable to give up her feelings for him. Hence, she was constantly being tormented by her feelings. However, Juzi knew that she had to focus on the task at hand. She took in a deep breath and allowed the cold air to calm her nerves and emotions. She had to succeed. She could not fail. For her son, for herself, and for him. To be honest, conquering the entire continent had never been her priority. The most important thing for her was to control her own destiny. After commanding the army for so long, she definitely knew how the Sun Moon Empire's technological advantage would not disappear in just 10 years. Hence, she was not anxious at all. However, she was very worried about her son. As her son continued to grow, it would soon be his turn to undergo the martial soul awakening ceremony. She had absolutely no idea what martial soul her son would inherit. Hence, she was really very scared for her son. She knew she could not afford to wait any longer. This was the best chance she had to take charge of her own destiny. At this moment, Who are you was also overwhelmed a wave of emotions. He could no longer remember how many times he had been to Radiant City. In fact, he had always left Radiant City with different impressions and feelings. He was initially very impressed with how the city was set up. Now, he felt as if he could control and destroy the city if he really wanted to. This was a transformation that came about as he became stronger. At the end of the day, one could only rely on one's abilities. One could only truly become confident after becoming powerful. In addition, he now had someone he loved whom he could trust with his life. After their encounter with the two ultimate Douluo, Who are you and Tang Wutong had been training very hard and were definitely improving faster than an average transcendent Douluo could. In fact, Who are you believed that they would be able to reach rank 9 1998 earlier than he had previously projected. Radiant City, Shu Tianran, and the Holy Ghost Church. We are finally here. This time around, we must influence affairs from within the Sun Moon Empire. This is the only way we can fight for more time for the Dalu Empire and Douluo Empire. Huro Yuao was confident that both he and Tang Wutong would be able to become ultimate Douluo by the time the war would start again in 10 years' time. Both of them would become the first ultimate Douluo in history to possess 3 soul cores. Even though soul tools would still be immensely powerful, he believed that they would be able to influence some of the events within the continent with their superior abilities. At the end of the day, Huro Yuao did not believe that the 3 empires' soul tool technology would be able to catch up with the Sun Moon empires in these 10 years. However, he felt that he would have a chance at deciding the outcome of the war once he had become sufficiently powerful. A faint light flickered across Huro Yuao's face as he flashed a smile. Shu Tianran, let's have a proper fight this time. The 3 soul engineer legions started to descend when they were about 25 kilometers away from Radiant City. After landing, they did not head towards Radiant City immediately. Instead, they stayed where they were and reorganized themselves. After all, it was common knowledge that flying above Radiant City was strictly forbidden. Unless they were given special permission by the Emperor, they would not be able to fly above the city. In fact, all of these returning troops had to be checked before they could enter Radiant City. Only military officers would be exempted from these checks. This was a rule everyone had to abide by. News of their return instantly spread to the rest of the capital. Very soon, a soul engineer legion flew out from the center of Radiant City. It was apparent that they had been given special permission to fly. Even though this was not Huro Yuao's first time seeing the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion, he was still very impressed by them. Every single one of their soul engineers was wearing a thick human-shaped soul tool which could barely conceal their powerful auras. Compared to them, the Beast Lord ranked soul engineer legions looked very juvenile. The Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion consisted of only soul Douluo. Their 100-man team were all 8-ring soul Douluo, or rather class 8 soul engineers. It was immensely frightening that the Sun Moon Empire was able to gather so many powerful soul engineers and put them in a regimented environment. They were essentially Shu Tianran's trump card to anyone who tried to threaten the Sun Moon Empire. On top of that, Radiant City was continually improving and enhancing its defenses. Hence, Radiant City was also called the #1 city on the entire continent. Huro Yuao waited quietly behind Juzi. As the 100 soul engineers from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion descended from the sky, a soul engineer in a human-shaped soul tool stepped forward to bow and greet Juzi. War God Empress, His Majesty has an order for you. He wants you to lead all commanders and generals who are vice commanders and above into the city. His Majesty will welcome all of you personally at the palace. The rest of the 3 soul engineer legions shall remain here and await further orders. The soul legion commanders who were standing behind Juzi couldn't help but reveal a look of displeasure after hearing what that soul engineer had said. After all, they had just returned victorious after destroying the Heavenly Soul Empire. Instead of being welcomed in a ceremonious way, they had only sent a soul engineer from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion to receive them. This was something they found hard to accept. Upon sensing the dissatisfaction behind her, Juzi raised her hand to demand silence from them, following which, she went down on one knee before acknowledging the order. Afterward, Juzi removed the helmet of her human-shaped soul tool before passing it to Huro Yuao, who was standing by her side. Following which, she led the vice commanders and commanders into Radiant City. That representative from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion immediately clarified, War God Empress, His Majesty has granted special permission for you to fly in with the commanders under you. However, Juzi shook her head and said, it's okay, how can we fly in just like that after returning from a war? That would be very disrespectful to His Majesty. We will walk in. I am sorry that I will have to trouble all of you to walk in with me to see His Majesty. After finishing her sentence, she did not even turn her head as she continued walking in the direction of the palace. As they were only her personal guards, Huro Yuao and Tang Wutong naturally could not follow her. After all, Shu Tianran had already said that he only wanted the commanders and vice commanders to enter the city. This meant that he did not want to see any soldier or guard enter the city. Hence, both of them could only wait here. Of course, Juzi knew that Shu Tianran was not trying to ill-treat her. His decision was founded solely on safety considerations. The 3 soul engineer legions should naturally not be allowed to enter Radiant City right after returning from a battle. But because of this, Juzi could be vulnerable if a soul master from the Holy Ghost Church were to attack her now. Hence, Shu Tianran had sent the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion to protect her. Of course, Juzi would not share her guess with the people around her. It was better that her commanders and vice commanders were displeased with Shu Tianran. It would only be advantageous to her plan. After watching Juzi leave, Tang Wutong transmitted a message to Huro Yuao. What should we do now? Huro Yuao revealed a faint smile and said, let's just wait here. I'm sure Juzi will settle everything for us. When we return to Radiant City, I could sense that she has become normal again. When she is in her usual state, she is definitely way better than us when it comes to military and political affairs. We should just let her handle the problem. Tang Wutong rolled her eyes and said, it seems like you have a lot of trust in her. Huro Yuao simply replied, there are no permanent enemies. This time, she needs our help. Even if she were to disregard the friendship we had in the past, she would not do anything disadvantageous to us before our mission is accomplished. Besides, I have spread out my spiritual detection as much as possible. If she harbors any ill intentions against us, we can definitely react in time. Okay. Tang Wutong did not say any more words of jealousy. One of the military officers who had been ordered to stay behind gave them instructions to rest up. The Soul Engineer Legion started to set up camp where they were. Normally, they would have to set up soul tool deployment areas and install their soul tools to prepare for battle. However, now that they had returned to the outskirts of Radiant City, there was no longer a need for those procedures. In fact, they might even be suspected of treason if they were to do that. Inside the Sun Moon Empire's palace, Shu Tianran was leading the minister and generals under him as he waited by the palace gate silently. Juzi should have entered the city by now. However, she was still out of his sight. As he stared into the distant sky, Shu Tianran could not help but wonder why she had still not arrived. At this instant, a representative from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion flew back and landed not too far from Shu Tianran. He quickly dashed over before kneeling before him. Your Majesty, the War God Empress has led the Imperial Dragon, Evil Eye Tyrant, and Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legions back to Radiant City. The War God Empress has decided against flying into the city out of respect for you. Hence, she will still need a fair bit of time before she arrives at the palace. After hearing his words, Shu Tianran smiled to himself. Juzi, you have not disappointed me. It seems like you have not allowed your achievements to go to your head. I am very pleased to see that. Where did the War God Empress and the commanders enter Radiant City? The representative quickly answered Shu Tianran's question. Shu Tianran nodded as he turned around to face his ministers and generals. Our War God Empress has been undefeated and has once again conquered more land for our empire. She has achieved a lot and deserves to be rewarded. It is also rare that she understands our etiquette and chooses not to fly into our city. I want all of you to follow me and welcome her. We need to acknowledge the achievements of our army. Long live His Majesty. Long live His Majesty. The ministers and generals cheered loudly in unison. At this instant, it was possible to tell that all of them had all sorts of expressions written on their faces. However, none of them dared to question what Shu Tianran had just said. The conflict between the army and the Holy Ghost Church was not something which could be hidden. After all, news of how Yu Shishui had tried to ambush the army had already spread back to Radiant City. Now that things had come to this stage, none of the ministers would support the Holy Ghost Church. After all, those evil soul masters were never well liked among them. It was needless to say what the generals felt about the Holy Ghost Church. After all, the War God Empress was one of them. Even though she was the Empress, she had helped secure countless victories for the army and the Empire over the past few years. Now that the Heavenly Soul Empire's land had been added to the Sun Moon Empire, the status of the army and the generals would most likely overtake that of the ministers. Hence, the support the generals and commanders had for Juzi would only increase as the days went by. In fact, they were very impressed by how the War God Empress had volunteered to shoulder the responsibility for the soul engineers under her who killed the evil soul masters from the Holy Ghost Church. In addition, she had even requested to be relieved from her appointment as the marshal after that incident. How would she not be able to move these naive generals? Even the rich and powerful people within the Sun Moon Empire were now very supportive of Juzi. They would definitely not have any objections now that Shu Tianran wanted to welcome the War God Empress personally. Even though Shu Tianran mentioned that he was going to receive Juzi personally, they were not actually walking quickly towards her and her group of commanders. After all, it was going to be a few kilometers. However, it was not long before Juzi, who was dressed in her fiery red human-shaped soul tool, appeared in Shu Tianran's sight. Shu Tianran's eyesight was very good. He could see very clearly that she was not wearing her helmet. Her fatigue was clearly written over her face, even though her eyes showed the determination she had within her. It pained him to know that his empress had suffered so much for him. This is my empress. If only I could. She really deserves my love. She has been fighting so hard for my ambitions and for the empire. Yet I am still so wary of her. Juzi. Tell me, how is my heart not supposed to wait for you? As this thought drifted across his mind, Shu Tianran quickened his steps as he moved forward to receive her. Similarly, Juzi also increased her speed as she strode quickly towards Shu Tianran without using any of her soul tools. When they were about 10 meters from each other, Juzi knelt down before him. Your Majesty. Her voice was trembling as tears streamed down from her face. By now, Shu Tianran was a lot more used to his prosthetic leg. He quickly strode forward and hugged Juzi, who was kneeling before him. Juzi hugged him tightly as she started to bawl loudly. The ministers and generals knew they should not move closer or interrupt this moment. They could tell how important Juzi was to Shu Tianran from the way he was hugging her. The commanders and vice commanders who had followed Juzi also knelt down. As they watched her cry, tears welled up in their eyes. This was especially true for Xie Xuanden, the legion commander of the evil eye current Soul Engineer Legion. He was already very distraught after seeing so many of his subordinates die at the hands of the Holy Ghost Church. After returning to the army and seeing how the War God Empress had suffered so much for everyone, one could only imagine the intensity of the emotions pent up within him. The vice commanders of the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion were also bawling uncontrollably. After all, almost the entire legion had been destroyed. On top of that, they had no idea where their soul tool supplies had gone. No one hated the Holy Ghost Church more than them. Previously, they were also the ones who had killed the greatest number of evil soul masters from the Holy Ghost Church. Shu Tianran spoke gently. Come on, don't cry, my dear Empress, don't cry. All is well now that you have returned. I will make everything right for you. After crying for a while longer, Juzi slowly broke free from Shu Tianran's embrace before taking 2 steps back. Following which, she kowtowed once more to Shu Tianran. I, the marshal and commander of the 3 armies, Juzi, shall now hand my appointment back to your majesty. As she spoke, she handed her commander's seal back to Shu Tianran. Shu Tianran did not take the seal from her. Instead, he said, Rise, my empress. Rise, my loyal subjects and commanders. All of you have done a lot for our empire. I have decided to reward all of you for expanding the land of the Sun Moon Empire. Follow me back to the palace. All of the ministers and commanders then followed Shu Tianran as he held Juzi's hand and strolled back to the palace. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.